Hey everybody, guess what? Dame Dash, Jay Z, still in court again. Dame just filed a new suit on Friday, so we got to talk about it. So as always, let's get the party started. Hey everybody, hey, welcome to the Finance Rebel Show. How did I mess up my own show name? I'm getting a little bit of a lag over here, so that's throwing me off just a little bit. Why is that happening? My own show name. I'm getting a little bit of a lag over here. That's really weird. Give me 1 second, y'all. That's really weird. But anyway, welcome, y'all. I'm Kamari Ellis. This is the Finance Rebel Show. Let me know if you guys hear any reverb, any feedback in the chat. But, as always, every Saturday we do a wealthy conversation. We talk about something that's intriguing from a business standpoint, from a money-making standpoint, and something that's usually directly affiliated or relevant to the Black community. All right. So today, like I said, we're going to talk about Jay Z and Dame Dash going back to court again. Dame filed suit Friday. If y'all remember, it was already dismissed, but Dame said, no, I'm not going away. It's not going down like that. And so he's back and he's filed his own countersuit about all of this. So again, I want to cover it, not to take shots, but again, I think it's something that's really, really relevant to the Black community, to all those who always talk about partnership. We never look at the bad side of it. And I am guilty of that, right? I talk about partnership. I talk about the power of partnership. But here is a great case study, live and live in color, that we can actually look at and learn from right away. So while we're getting ready to go, do me a favor, everybody. I never shared this out to anybody. Got too caught up getting ready for today's show. So do me a favor, share this out, tag me in it, so everybody can get to see it shared in some of y'all favorite places. All right, but as always, y'all know we got to do today's market rundown. All right, so the S&P 500 is at an all-time high, closed at 4,200. All right, up week to date, 2.7%, almost 2.75%. Year to date, the S&P 500 overall stock market is up almost 14%. Almost 14%. So the stock market is still humming along. Oil closed at $74 a barrel. So oil is still pumping. It's still moving up. We still going to have issues as we get into summer drive season. I think gas is going to continue to go up. I know I paid like $3.25 earlier this week getting gas. So, everybody's getting outside. Everybody's starting to travel. People are making moves. People still have cabin fever for what was that, almost 12 months, 10 months, however long that stay in place order has been. But people are starting to move around. All right, gold still below that 1,800 level. Now, gold, when we talk about gold, I'm talking about per troy ounce, right? So gold is $1,781 per troy ounce, okay? Bitcoin is still at 31,000. So listen, this is an opportunity for everybody to take pause, right? I don't have a problem with any cryptocurrencies. I don't have a problem with Bitcoin. I know y'all love to label me as the Bitcoin hater. I am not. However, we have to start putting good financial planning principles into practice. So you can buy Bitcoin, you can buy your stocks, you can buy your real estate. But here's the thing, you have to understand how each asset operates and where it should go. Everybody's got their lane. Many of us want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and throw all our savings into Bitcoin or any crypto. Please don't do that. I know a lot of the folks that watch my show are just beginners and they're wealth on their wealth building journey. They're trying to figure out the best moves to make. They're trying to figure out how to maximize their dollars no matter where they are. And they say, hey, I have money in savings, but it's not doing anything. Well, a lot of us don't have a whole lot of money in savings. Sometimes just having the money in savings is a great thing. It's a security blanket, right? So with security blankets, they're only needed when it's cold outside, right? To make sure that you stay warm. Same thing for cash. Cash will keep you warm when it's cold outside. When you have a dire emergency, when something's wrong, where, the car breaks down, the roof falls in. Save y'all money, folks. Don't just throw it all into Bitcoin. Now, if you want to throw, I don't know, $25 every time you get paid, $50 every time you get paid, $100 in every time you get paid, that's cool. But let's not take our entire savings and throw it into something in the pursuit of getting rich quick. It's not a good look, y'all. It's not a good look. All right. Because again, when those winters come, you need to bundle up because it's a cold winter. So, again, that cash will keep you warm, keep you fed, keep you dry. And so it's important, right? So again, Bitcoin closed at $31,110. I know we're all excited about it, but the basics are the basics, and the basics will save your hide when everything goes away. All right. So I wanted to go over this, but before we do that, when I say this, right, I want to go over this whole Jay Z, Dame Dash, Roc-A-Fella lawsuit. I even got some notes, so let's get into it. All right, so listen, Dame Dash, James Z, in court, along with Roc-A-Fella, right? But let's start back from the beginning, because y'all know I talked about this on Wednesday. One aspect of the case, right? We all know that case was thrown out, but I think it's important that we actually recognize the legacy that Dame and Jay built, right? Two brothers from New York, Jay from Brooklyn, Dame from Harlem, actually Biggs from Harlem too, right? A lot of times people forget that it's Jay Z, Dame Dash, and Kareem Biggs Burks, right? Biggs doesn't get nearly the credit that he should get. When you go back and you do some of the history, you'll see a Kanye West will big up Biggs. Everybody has something great to say about Biggs. Nobody has anything negative or bad to say about Biggs, but Biggs is kind of the background guy, right? At least in from a media perspective, because the focus is on Jay, because he's doing the music, because he's married to Beyonce, because he's moving around doing great business deals, right? The last title deal was a great deal. A lot of people focus on Dame. Dame has done a lot of stuff too, right? Can't discredit Dame. You can't have Jay without Dame. You can't have Kanye without Dame. And I know somebody's going to say, well, okay, you say you made Hove, we'll make another Hove. But Dame was definitely a permanent fixture in that Jay Z cake and baking it up and putting it out there. And I think when people like to take sides in this thing, right, they're not objective. They don't want to look at the whole thing. But, Dame was the bad guy. Jay was the good cop. Dame was the bad cop. Dame would bust up things and go into meetings and scream at folks and cuss everybody else out. But part of that was needed, especially in that very vulturous environment. Jay talks about tell you how to move in a room full of vultures, right? And swim with the sharks. Well, Dame was definitely blocking for a lot of that. And what I mean by blocking, I'm talking about football, protecting the quarterback. Jay was the quarterback in the scenario, and Dame was protecting him, making a lot of moves, right? So again, I want to look at this from the perspective of what can we learn, right? They made great moves. Arguably one of the greatest record labels of all time. I think Jay Z by himself sold over like 37 million records. I forget what Kanye sold. Not sure what Cameron sold. State Property, my hometown team with Beanie, Petey Crack, Freeway, Chris and Neef, they didn't do as much, but they definitely had an impact on the culture. And when I say didn't do as much, I'm talking about record sales, right? But they definitely had an impact on the culture. You can't take away from that at all. Can't take away from that at all. So, I think it's important to set the tone and talk about the history of this great Black organization, right? So again, Jay couldn't get a record deal. That's how Roc-A-Fella even started, right? That's how Jay, Dame, and Biggs came together. Again, I talked about this on Wednesday. I won't go over all the same things, but again, just want to reiterate this for the people who didn't get a chance to watch on Wednesday. But Jay Z could not get a record deal. Arguably one of the greatest MCs, rappers, lyricists of our time or ever. Couldn't get a record deal. That just goes to show how out of whack certain corporations are, certain businesses are when it comes to recognizing talent. Right. Couldn't get a record deal. They said, let's do it for ourselves. Let's become our own company. So then Roc-A-Fella LLC was formed. Reasonable Doubt was then created and then put out. Reasonable Doubt is a big reason or really the reason for the argument. You know what? I'll back up. It's not the reason for the argument. There's other reasons, and we'll talk about that as well, because I have the court cases and all that. Went through a lot of it, but they couldn't get a deal, so they did it on their own. It's been noted that Jay Z, Dame, and Biggs were selling records out of their trunks, of their cars. They did it from the muscle, y'all. They did it from the muscle, and I don't think we can gloss over that, because they created a great hip hop institution, right? So after Reasonable Doubt came out, they partnered with Def Jam. They partnered with Def Jam supposedly because, a lot of speculations of the money's being made here, right? Some people say Def Jam brought a portion of Roc-A-Fella. Some people say it was just a partnership in income and sales only. I'm not sure, right? But clearly there was something. They were in league. They were in partnership. They were in concert together to make money. Def Jam and Roc-A-Fella, that is. All right. So they did a whole bunch of stuff, right? Sold a bunch of records. Jay Z was one of the first people, hip hoppers, to boycott the Grammys. A lot of people forget that because the Grammys snuffed DMX, right? Rest in peace of DMX. Fast forward, they've done all these great things, sold all these albums, done all these tours. Again, brought all these new artists out. All these new artists. And then all of a sudden, out of somewhere, out of nowhere, out of left field, it all falls apart. It all falls apart. And then Jay-Z's now the head of Def Jam. And so supposedly, again, more rumors, I don't really know. Supposedly Def Jam brought out all of Roc-A-Fella. Dame and Biggs was sent packing. And Jay-Z was left with everything else. So, again, still not clear on what really happened, but that's what the streets are saying. The streets are talking, right? So the streets are talking about that, right? But clearly, Dame was mad. Jay was mad. Again, Dame said a lot of stuff, actually on some records, because there was Death of the Dynasty. There was a documentary. Jay put some stuff out on wax as well. And it wasn't the best of things. But then, fast forward, we see Dame and Jay show up at some dinners and some birthday parties for some loved ones. So it seems like there's something there, right? I mean, again, they built something that only 1% of us could ever imagine to do. All right. So fast forward from there, we're in like 2005-ish, right? And between Dame is still talking crazy about Jay. Clearly he's not happy with Jay. But Dame has also been dropping a lot of jewels. Now, I don't agree with everything that Dame says, but there are some things that I do agree with, right? I do agree that you got to be willing to put up your own money for your deals, for your businesses. It's great to get credit. It's great to get loans from people. But at the end of the day, if you don't have any of that and you're trying to make it from the mud, you got to be willing to put up your own bread. Dame talks about that a lot. I think that's important, right? Again, Jay has been the model investor slash business mogul with his deals with Tidal recently, his deal with Sprint a few years ago. He just sold his wine, or 50% of his wine. So Jay is about doing those joint ventures and partnerships. But now, full circle, we're in 2021, right? Reasonable Doubt came out in 1996. Again, Reasonable Doubt came out in 1996, and there's a reason I bring that up. So all of a sudden, people were talking about Dame Dash has coined an NFT. Now, does anybody know what an NFT is? So NFT stands for non-fungible token, right? So again, that's part of the lore for all of this, right? Part of the reason why I'm even talking about this, because again, it's partnership and it's a mix of new technology. So NFT, call it digital art, right? We're seeing a lot of them being created for sports cards, for documents, for posters, for original artwork. So they'll take those things, they'll digitize them, and then they'll sell them. And they are sold via a cryptocurrency. All right. So again, it's new technology. But Roc-A-Fella and Jay Z sued Dame because supposedly Dame, allegedly, right? Air quotes, allegedly, Dame is going, or was trying to sell the Reasonable Doubt album cover and his rights in an NFT. Now, last week they talked about that. The case was the courts ordered Dame not to do anything, basically to cease and desist, stop all forward progress in motion. But Dame says in this new lawsuit he just filed on Friday that there was never an NFT, it was never minted. And so what does minted mean, right? When we talk about NFTs, it's basically where you take the digitized art document, whatever it may be, and then you put it up on the blockchain and you make it available to be sold. He said that never happened. He said Jay Z and folks are making that up. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this. I want to pull up the document real quick. So give me a second. All right, so I'm pulling up the document. And so here's the document, right? So I like to get receipts, y'all. Many of y'all don't know that I am a member of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. I am the treasurer, but I hang around with journalists all the time. So I like to add journalistic type stuff into my presentations. What does that mean? I like to get to the facts, the real facts. I don't just like to rely on magazine articles or newspaper articles, because sometimes, a lot of times, they're incorrect. They're wrong. They're misquoted. And for the record, I'm not a lawyer. All right. I am not a lawyer. I like to play one sometimes on social media. But listen, I can read, right? I'm a college graduate. So I'm not going to say that all college graduates can read either, because we know that's not true. But I want to go through this and just talk about some of the language, right? Now, from the first lawsuit, I'm just doing the latest lawsuit that Dame has brought up on Friday. However, there was, again, the previous lawsuit that Jay Z, along with Roc-A-Fella, stated was that what their ownership was. Now, I talked about the supposed split, the money got, the monies that were supposedly separated, and we thought Roc-A-Fella was brought by either Def Jam or Universal. A lot of people are believing that, but I'm not sure. But what we saw in the documents that Roc-A-Fella produced, they said that Dame, Jay, and Biggs are all 1/3 partners, right? So forget about the not Roc-A-Fella. Forget about the Def Jam part, right? Because I'm sure there was some kind of money that was allocated and dispersed. But at this point, nobody knows. Nobody knows, because contracts are murky. It's all about the nuance in the contract. Who knows? There could have been buyout clauses for all three of them that they dealt with Universal/Def Jam. Jay Z could have paid some money out. Dame could have paid some money out. Biggs could have paid some money out. I don't know. But all I do know is what Roc-A-Fella presented. And they said that the ownership of the Roc-A-Fella Corporation is split between Jay, Dame, and Biggs equally, 1/3, right? And so they alleged that Dame was being a bad partner, not being a good fiduciary, because he was selling this asset, right? And by the way, Jay Z's rights are all assigned to Roc-A-Fella, according to the lawsuit. So Jay Z's rights and his likeness were all assigned to Roc-A-Fella. So then that means Dame has some kind of stake in it. All right. But going back again, they said Dame was being torturous. He wasn't being a good partner. He wasn't being a good fiduciary. And so that's all bad business, right? And that's why the judge said you have to cease and desist what you're doing. All right. And that came out last week. Dame on Friday then came out with a motion, did an article in Rolling Stone or interview with Rolling Stone, and said that he never had an NFT, never minted it, said he does want to sell his 1/3 interest in Roc-A-Fella. Now, usually when partners come together, because again, I am a big believer of partnerships. I'm a believer in the power of partnerships, but just like good marriages, right? Because that's the ultimate partnership, right? They can fall apart when you do not nurture and respect and take care of the overall partnership. So again, clearly they're not doing that. Clearly they're not taking care of this relationship because they've been in business all this time. And that's what the court documents are showing. All right. So in Dame's release on Friday, again, I have it up here on the screen. I wanted to show a couple pieces that I highlighted, but basically Dame is saying that there was no NFT. Like I just said, he's submitting to remove Jay's lawyer or Roc-A-Fella's lawyer, right? Again, just as an aside, Roc-A-Fella is owned 1/3 by each of them. So sometimes I'm going back and forth and I'm saying that there's still an ownership interest in all of it. All right. So I see somebody just joined. All of the ownership, right? The likeness and all of that is owned by Roc-A-Fella, not by Jay, not by Dame, not by Biggs, but by Roc-A-Fella. All right. And I want y'all to keep that in mind because that will come up a little bit later on. So let me pull up this court case here. All right. So lawyers appearing in court required to comply. All right. So they are meeting in the Southern District. This is where this paperwork or this lawsuit is being filed in the New York Southern District. All right. So it states here, I have it up. Dame is stating that there's issues of professional conduct, right? So it says professional conduct requires disqualification of Quinn Emanuel and the action due to his concurrent representation of Jay Z individually and Roc-A-Fella corporate governance matters. That's a conflict of interest, right? So he's saying that Jay is representing Roc-A-Fella and Jay Z. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but that's a clear conflict of interest. Why? Because Dame is also an owner or part of ownership in Roc-A-Fella. So how can Roc-A-Fella then sue Dame and represent Jay, who is one of the shareholders in Roc-A-Fella as well, right? So I think that might have some merit. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I see the conflict of interest. All right. So I'm not going to read everything word by word because I don't want to bore anybody to death. But it's saying here that, the lawyer is playing dual roles here. Can't play dual roles. That's not fair. That's not fair to all parties involved. And the whole reason for the legal system And we know that there's a lot of issues with the legal system, but supposedly, right, the legal system is there to be fair and balanced, no pun intended, and serve as a place of justice. All right. So the decisions regarding attorney qualification in the circuit to resolve the twin tensions underlying any such motion, a client's rights freely to choose his counsel, which might be balanced against the need to maintain the highest standards of the profession. So they're just citing their other court cases where these issues have been apparent and have come up. All right, so let me scroll down because there's some spots that are highlighted. All right, so it says, as detailed in the Dash Declaration, it is alleged that Jay Z, without authorization, twice retained counsel for RAF to take advantage. And RAF, by the way, is Roc-A-Fella Records for anybody that is listening to the podcast replay or watching on IG. By the way, if you're watching on IG, I would suggest you come on over to YouTube. All you got to do is go over to my bio, click the link, the first link in my bio, and it'll bring you here to YouTube. And this is where I have everything on display on the screen. All right. So it says Jay Z, without authorization, twice retained counsel for RAF to take adverse actions against Dash. The first being the service of the cease and desist letter, which stopped a lawful auction, and the second being this action commenced by Quinn Emanuel. Now that Dash has formally challenged Jay Z's authority to take such actions in this litigation, and during a recent shareholder meeting held on June 22nd, so there was a shareholder meeting. Again, who are the shareholders? Dash, Carter, and Biggs. All right. So they had a meeting. This is what's on the court documents. So in which Quinn Emanuel's attorneys personally represented Jay Z and presided over the meeting. There can be no doubt that there is a clear conflict of interest warranting its disqualification in this case. Now, again, this is a case study, y'all. That's why I am bringing this up. It's a case study. This is to learn how to protect ourselves when we get into business dealings with maybe our friends when we're grinding from the bottom. Because again, we can't always see the future. So it's important that you protect yourself at all times. It's important that you protect yourselves at all times, just like boxing. All right. So, so let me shift here. Give me 1 second, because there's another document here that I want to show y'all. But again, and I'm actually really sad by this whole situation, because I have great admiration and respect for both parties. They both have done great things, and it's sad that this is on public display where they both kind of being petty. And I'll come down to the petty part as well. Some may disagree, but I don't. All right. All right. So let's share this here. All right. So declarative relief, right? So here, this is a justifiable controversy because Dash has not minted any NFT. So remember earlier on in the broadcast, I talked about what minting is, what an NFT is, and Dash is saying that he didn't do any of the kind. He didn't do any of the things that he was alleged of having done. All right. So to the extent that there is justifiable controversy is whether Jay Z or RAF has the power to curtail Dash's ability to freely transfer, sell, assign, encumber, or dispense of his undisputed is key word there, 1/3 interest in RAF, Roc-A-Fella Records, y'all, based on the record before the court. The answer to that question is clear. Accordingly, RAF cannot demonstrate a likelihood of success of the merits of this claim, as Dash clearly has legal authority to retain or dispense his 1/3 interest in RAF without approval or consent. Moreover, Even if such a sale of the interest is effectuated, the RD copyright, Reasonable Doubt is RD, right? We're talking about the record, the album, Jay Z's first album, is, as it always was, the exclusive property of Roc-A-Fella Records, and by extension, its shareholders. So Dame is saying that he has a right to do it. Now, again, I want y'all to keep that in mind. All right. Dame is also saying under New York law, in order to establish a breach of fiduciary duty, a plaintiff must prove the existence of a fiduciary relationship, misconduct by the defendant, and damages that were directly caused by the defendant's misconduct. All right, there's a citation there. Additionally, a fiduciary relationship exists between an agent and principal, signifying a relationship of trust and confidence, whereby the agent is bound to exercise the utmost good faith and undivided loyalty toward the principal through the relationship. All right. Here, to the extent Dash owes a fiduciary relationship to Roc-A-Fella Records, there is no doubt that the plaintiff's allegations of breach are devoid of merit. Basically, he's saying Raf's or Jay Z's lawsuit is full of malarkey. It's BS. I'm trying not to cuss because YouTube likes to ding my videos. So anytime I slip and just be myself and talk the way I would normally talk to my friends, I get dinged for it. But we'll deal with that later. All right. So in short, Dash never attempted to auction off or otherwise sell off the Reasonable Doubt copyright. All right. See, generally Dash D or Dash declaration. Moreover, to the extent of Raf alleges that he has been harmed by such a sale, it should focus its ire on Jay Z, who has been misusing it to file misleading public lawsuits about the Reasonable Doubt record or album or copyright, which negatively may affect the value of Raf, okay, or Roc-A-Fella Records. So again, Dash is saying that by Jay Z bringing up these lawsuits, it's treacherous. It's right because they're going back and forth. This is a game of tennis. Jay hit the first serve. Now Dame is returning it back, and now they're just going back and forth. And Dame is basically accusing Jay of the same thing that Jay accused Dame of. Go figure. All right, so conversion and replying. All right, this is just a bunch of legal ease here. I mean, listen, it's all good, right? I would suggest any of you to pull it up. All right, so here it says, for these two claims, Raf falsely contends that Dash has stolen and claims that he owns the copyrights of Reasonable Doubt and that Dash has exercised unauthorized dominion over Raf. Now, something just came to mind. It just came to mind. Now, Biggs did something. I have to go back and look, but I believe Biggs did something for the 20th anniversary of Reasonable Doubt. But again, I would have to go back and look, and I would say that kind of substantiates Dame's point that if Biggs was able to do that, again, Kareem Biggs Burke, one of the third partners, one of the not known, or one of the partners that are not as known, rather shareholders, they're not as famous, right? I believe he did something in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of Reasonable Doubt. But again, I would need to go back and look. So Dash has exercised unauthorized dominion over Raf, his property in which its legal title and a superior right of possession. Plaintiff goes on to say he's Dash also refused to return Raf Inc. property, despite knowing that he has no individual ownership rights to Reasonable Doubt. So these nonsensical statements are far from the truth, which Raf knew before it filed this action, that if they were made outside the context of this lawsuit, Dash will be suing Raf for defamation. All right, so in short, as Dash never stole the copyright, Raf cannot demonstrate a likelihood of success of the merits of either claim. So basically they're saying that Dash Basically, they're saying that Roc-A-Fella Records has no right. They have no authority. They have no claim to make the claims that they did or to file the suits that they did. All right. Then they go on to talk about unjust enrichment. To plead an unjust enrichment claim, the plaintiff must assert factual allegations that, one, the defendants were enriched, right? The enrichment was at plaintiff's expense, and that the circumstances are such that equity and good conscience require the defendants to make restitution. So basically saying they never got any money from this. He didn't get anything from it. So there was no enrichment. So there can't be unjust enrichment. All right. So all of that comes to point here, right? Again, partnerships, just like bad marriages, can get really messy, right? There is no imminent harm to plaintiff. There's no imminent harm to plaintiff. So plaintiff offers no argument as to show how it will be harmed if Dash was allowed to freely transfer, sell, or auction off the 1/3 interest in RAF. Again, Dash is claiming that he's not trying to sell Reasonable Doubt's copyrights. He's trying to sell his overall interest in Roc-A-Fella Records. It's a distinction, and it matters, right? He wants out totally, not just out of reasonable doubt, because again, in the previous lawsuits that were filed, they own a lot of stuff. Again, a lot of the recordings, a lot of the copyrights. All right. So moreover, even if Dash were to have sold his interest in RAF, plaintiff cannot pre-offer any argument as to how any of the remaining shareholders would be prejudiced in mere change in the RAF shareholder ledger. Now, this is, to me, this is the real crawl here. This is the real thing. Dame is saying that he can sell his interest in Roc-A-Fella Records without first giving his shareholders first right of refusal. What does first right of refusal mean? It means that if you do want to sell, you have to offer it to your other partners, your other shareholders first to sell. Now, Dame said that Jay offered him a lowball figure when he talked about this earlier. I want to say, top of my mind, somebody said, or someone said, or somewhere I read, it was $1 million. And I would say that's definitely a lowball figure. Some would say, hey, it's just business. Buy low, sell high. I get it. But I will say this. I do think when it comes to black folks and black folks doing business in our history overall, I think we have to consider being equitable, right? Fair doesn't exist, but being equitable to our brothers and sisters. That's just my personal take on it. I know many don't share that take, but if a man helped you build an empire, and clearly he helped him build it, to what level, that's arguable. But clearly he was there. I feel it's only right to try to offer a fair, or let me back up, because fair doesn't exist, an equitable offer that's just for all parties involved. All right. So again, Dash sought to auction off only what was his, and were this court to grant an injunction precluding him from doing so that would irreparably harm Dash and Dash only. So basically they're saying that this lawsuit is only, the original lawsuit is only, the only aim of it is to hurt Dash. It's not to hurt Jay, and it's not to hurt Biggs. So again, it's pretty interesting, right? It's pretty interesting when you look at this. Again, it's almost like a husband and wife arguing over who gets the house, a husband and wife arguing over who gets the business, a husband and wife, or in this terms, a spouse and a spouse, right? Because it could be a man and a man, a woman and a woman. Pretty soon it'll be humans and dogs, or humans and animals that'll be able to get married. But at any rate, whatever it takes for them to be happy. But when they split, when people typically split, they get in their feelings. they get in their emotions and they make petty beefs out of small things. What's the term? You're making a mountain out of a molehill, right? So you're taking this small thing and making this big thing out of it. But again, that clearly shows that neither one of them have probably been good partners and been good stewards of Roc-A-Fella for this last, 15, 16 years since they've been separated. Just like you might have two parents who have children who don't speak to one another. I'm a living testimony of that, right? After all these years of my parents been separated. So I guess maybe that's one of the reasons why I look at this and find interest in it, right? Because again, y'all know most of my shows or all of my shows are geared towards raising the financial IQ, especially those who are in the Black community, all right? And so when I look at business dealings like this, right, that are very personal, very intimate in nature, it sets a bad precedent or a bad standard for those who come behind it. Because a lot of times people will say, again, going back to the high ball, low ball offers. Well, that's typical business dealings. And that's more of a European standardized thing, right? We want to get the most out of a thing without care, cause, or concern about the other party. And I don't think us in the Black community have that luxury. We should always be trying to strive. Again, this is very idealized, right? And I totally understand that. But we should always be trying to strive to make sure it's a win-win for all parties involved. All parties involved. But again, a lot of us don't have that same approach, that same feeling. And I get it. And I respect it. I respect it as well. But I can only tell y'all how I see it and how I feel about it again. All right. So listen, everybody, if you're just now joining, you're watching the Finance Rebel Show every Saturday at noon or noon-ish today, right? We do our wealthy conversations. We talk about something relating to wealth. Today, we talked about the beef between Jay Z and Dame Dash. To me, this is one of the best examples of a wealthy conversation that we can have, right? Because clearly we have two parties. We have two parties that are not seeing eye to eye. Clearly we have two parties who are not even working to seeing eye to eye. And I want to be clear, right? Some of the statements are unfair because I don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, right? Again, it's impossible to know. Like I just said earlier in the broadcast that everybody is stating that Def Jam brought Jay's interest out. Well, we really don't know what happened because, again, we're talking about contracts. And contracts get murky. Contracts are very nuanced. Contracts are very detail-oriented. So we don't know what actually happened. I'm speaking from a place of idealism. I just want to be clear on that, right? I would hope that all parties involved would try to come to an amicable agreement, a sit down, a shaking of hands, breaking the bread, figuring out what to do, what's best in everybody's interest to respect the work and the equity that everybody has in this thing, right? Clearly, Jay Z is the creative genius, the creative driver in most of this thing, right? But the contract is the contract. They signed a 1/3 interest contract. And from what Dame is alleging, he can sell it free and clear without the permissions of his other shareholders or his other partners. Now, again, I find that pretty weird. Because in my former life, doing a lot of financial advising work and estate planning work, if you are a business owner and you have partners, there are certain forms of insurance you might get. There are certain contracts that you might put in place if somebody is unable to continue service. Not having the first right of refusal seems kind of weird, right? So if one of your partners were to die, and they have a spouse might not necessarily be a great partner. They might not fit. Doesn't mean they're dumb. Doesn't mean they're unqualified. They just might not fit. And so usually you have key man insurance to buy out the partner who passed away his interest, right? And if that's not there, then usually the spouse has another form of recourse to then sell their interest if none of those things are laid out. And so again, I find it weird. I find it weird. But again, what do y'all all think about this? I would like to see in the chat. Now, I have one more part of this that I want to talk about. So just give me a second. So the other part I want to talk about this is, again, another new development. So now Jay Z is selling his NFT. Jay Z is selling an NFT through auction with Sotheby's. Now, if anybody knows what Sotheby's is, it is like the creme de la creme of auction houses, right? They do a lot of the top level, top line auction houses. But again, I just find this all weird that Jay is now selling NFT where he just brought a suit stating that Roc-A-Fella owns everything. He signed away his interest, his likeness, his lyrics, the copyright, and it's all owned for those particular things. It's all owned by Roc-A-Fella Records. And again, y'all can go look that up. Plenty of other lawyers have covered it. It's not just me. It's not just that's Kamari just stating it, talking out his wazoo. So again, I want to. Sorry about that, y'all. I clicked the wrong button. So I wanted to put up this one thing that showed here. Jay's selling or looking to auction off his NFT of Reasonable Doubt. Again, I find it all interesting because now we are in the new age. We're taking advantage of the technologies. I do find it interesting, though, that Jay and Dame are at the front of all of this, right? Or at least making noise in this. So here it says, Jay Z auctioning Reasonable Doubt. Jay Z is auctioning Reasonable Doubt NFT. Again, NFT stands for non-fungible token. It's a form of cryptocurrency, okay? At Sotheby's. Okay, so Roc-A-Fella Records recently barred co-founder Dame Dash for selling his own NFT of the album. So again, it says, hopefully everybody can read this. Let me blow this up just a little bit. And again, I apologize to everybody on Instagram. Hopefully everybody listening to the podcast replay can understand the words that are coming out of my mouth when I'm talking about this, okay? So there's a new item on auction at Sotheby's, a non-fungible token created to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Jay Z's debut album, Reasonable Doubt. Jay Z commissioned the NFT from the Baltimore-born, Brooklyn-based multidisciplinary artist, Derek Adams. Salute to Jay for at least getting a Black artist involved, which he has a record of doing all the time. He always promotes Black creatives. All right. It's called Heir to the Throne. And you can preview a static image of the NFT below. The bidding starts at $1,000. So the bidding starts at $1,000. And the auction closes on July 2nd, Friday, July 2nd. Now, it started at $1,000. I'm curious, what do y'all think the final bid will be? What do you think will happen with the final bid? All right, so a portion of the proceeds from the auction will benefit the Sean Carter Foundation. Now, that's not Roc-A-Fella Records. It's Sean Carter. It's totally different. With this NFT project, we jointly embrace the opportunity to further conversation about how artists of different mediums contribute to a more inclusive society, Derek Adams said in a statement. My portraits aim to capture the sensibility, optimism, and beauty of urban life. And in Jay's work, I found tremendous kinship. All right. So again, we're talking about this here. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, just some of the pertinent parts here. Last week, Roc-A-Fella Records sued co-founder named Dash, alleging that Dash could not sell or auction his own Reasonable Doubt NFT as the rights to the record belong to the label. Dash claimed the lawsuit was filed with inaccuracies, but days later, TMZ reported that the federal judge found Jay Z and Roc-A-Fella claims to be credible and correct. The judge also said Dash has no right to sell the album or any rights to it, according to Music Business Worldwide. All right. So again, so now Jay is selling it, but what happened to all the rights of Roc-A-Fella? So was there a meeting at Roc-A-Fella amongst the shareholders to say where it's going to go? Because again, in previous lawsuits, from my understanding, this has to be a business decision. Now, one of the important things, right? Again, I'm telling y'all this is a case study. I'm looking at this from a case study perspective. Anytime you are in business with someone, with people, you need to have an operating agreement. And so technically the operating agreement should dictate how they handle the day-to-day affairs of this. Who can license the business, right? Or who has authority to act as an agent to license their works, their copyrights, their trademarks, such and so forth and so on, right? All of that is important. I see so many businesses, and my business as a tax accountant, when they start a business, there's no operating agreement. They just want to get to it. Never a thought that something's going to go awry 1 year, or listen, 1 month, really 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the road, where you are intertwined with these folks. There's no operating agreement. Take the time, get an operating agreement. I would suggest everybody get a lawyer and do it. If you are familiar at least with what is required in it, you can do it yourself. But at least put it on file. Have it on record. Everybody needs to agree to it, right? Don't just go willy-nilly into business and say, matter of fact, my other fellow YouTube tax accountant is in the building, right? So JT is in here, right? So JT and I have very, very similar backgrounds, right? Jay-Z's a tax accountant. I'm a tax accountant. JT is a tax accountant. I'm a tax accountant. JT is a financial advisor. I'm a former financial advisor. So we have a lot of similarities. If JT and I were to go into business, oh, by the way, we both are on YouTube, right? But he's killing me right now. He's killing the game. Shout outs to him. If we were to go into business and let's say we created the JT Rebel Advisory Firm, we need an operating agreement. We need an operating agreement. Why? Well, we might get into an argument of who gets what, how much money should go where. JT is popping way bigger than me right now on YouTube, right? He might say, I deserve 70% of profits and you deserve 30% of profits. And just by looking at the numbers, right? JT just hit 10,000 subs, right? I'm at like 3,000 subs. So I'm pulling from that 70-30, right? My 30% is his, well, actually, it's less than that. I'm wrong. I need to go to do the math. Somebody do me a favor. Somebody divide 3,000 into 13,000 and 10,000 and 13,000. I just gave y'all the math on how to figure out splits. But he could make that argument and say that's a fair and appropriate way of divvying up profits. And it might be, right? I've seen operating agreements where they will amend the operating agreement yearly or annually to reflect the profits, or rather the revenue that each partner / shareholder brought in. It matters, right? Because again, everybody, just like in a marriage, and I keep going back to marriage, everybody wants to feel valued in a marriage. And so if you get to the point where you don't feel valued in a marriage, what happens? Butting of heads. And clearly Jay and Dame are butting heads. They've been butting heads for over a decade, right? But now when you get to this, when you have an asset, there's an argument with what to do. And clearly, in my opinion, like I said earlier, they have not been the best stewards, right? Because let me say this: when you're married, right? When you have a partnership, your duty as a partner, is to make sure that the family, the company, is good, right? So again, Jay Z, Damon Biggs created this family. There's tension, no matter who started it, right? Man and woman get married together, they have children. They decide to split. There's tension. Who suffers? The children. All right, same thing. Who suffers? The company, right? And oftentimes, when you get into situations where you actually grow a real company, and when I say real, I'm talking about something that's going on. Like Roc-A-Fella could go on forever. Reasonable Doubt probably gets crazy streams. Reasonable Doubt probably gets crazy requests for copyright and trademark usage. So it's generating income, right? It's generating income. And all of those who are affiliated with working towards that income generation are affected negatively because the partners / shareholders / parents / ex-husband / wife / ex-partners can't get their ish together. And it's sad. All right, so Mad Dog said, all right, so the percentages will be, thank you, Mad Dog, appreciate that. The percentages will be 77% to JT, 23% to me, right? So again, you have a way of creating a baseline. Again, I would urge all of you when you go into business with multiple parties, whether it's people or other entities, right? Because I see tax Twitter or LLC Twitter is telling all y'all to do a bunch of janky stuff, but I'll just say this, whether they're telling you the LLC with multiple people, corporation with multiple people, please have an operating agreement in place. It's for times like this where y'all done work, y'all built assets, and then now you come to a crossroad of who actually is entitled or deserving or owns said asset, and who wants to go through that at the last hour. All right, so listen, y'all. I'm gonna bring this to a head. I'm not gonna talk to y'all all day, but let's jump into the comments and let's have a conversation. All right. So anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Go ahead and throw them in the chat. If you are on IG, throw them in the little question mark bubble at the bottom. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, just go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we'll get at them. All right. So, hey, Miss Edith, how are you? She says, good afternoon, Kamari, patiently waiting, did my morning yoga. Yay. Listen, y'all, health is wealth, and a part of your health is your mental health. It's precious. It's important. Keep it locked in, y'all. Attend to it. Be a good steward of your health. All right, my man, JT Coins, $2.99, $2.99 super chat. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, Jose's in the building. Jose Sanchez is in the building. What's up, Jose? Was on the Fatherhood camp, the kids camp, the children's camp, rather, I should say, the youth money camp, ownership camp earlier today with Jose. So shout out to Jose. Shout out to my brothers, Corey and Jimmy over at Fatherhood. New York. All right, hey Tara, how you doing? All right, Walter, you've been in here before. Which Roc-A-Fella are you referring to? So I'm not actually referring to David or John Roc-A-Fella. Those gentlemen are white. I'm referring to Roc-A-Fella Records, which was created by 3 black gentlemen, Jay Z, Dame Dash, and Kareem Biggs Birch. That's who I'm referring to. All right, hey Angela, how you doing? Miss Edith says, my professor says, before you seek, know the source. Do your research. Thanks for sharing the court documents, Kamari. Yeah. Listen, I'm not just here to try to talk out my anus, y'all. We need facts. When you're doing business, you want to have facts. I know sometimes I might not be able to get to the point as fast as y'all like, but that's because I'm trying to drive out all the facts, or bringing all the facts, bringing all the facts to bear, rather. Because again, we live in a punch bite or sound bite society. And a lot of times the sound bites are misleading. That's why we had the last cheetah monkey president, because the whole country is clued in on sound bites. But you got to get the substantial, the details, the real nuance of a thing to really get your power. All right. So all right, partnership not looking that interesting. Oh, By the Hood. Okay, y'all in the building. $5 super chat from By the Hood. Appreciate you. All right, how do you sell 1/3 of a partnership? That's going to get messy. Could be. But listen, it happens all the time. Look at corporate raiders. Now that happens because it's on the public market, usually for corporations like a Roc-A-Fella Records, which is a private market. It's a harder market. It's harder to bring to market. It's harder to liquidate. It's harder to sell. Right. But Jay is a big figure. Dame is a big figure. They're both very popular. So they could probably make a couple phone calls, possibly reach out to some lawyers, possibly reach out to some investment bankers, and find people to potentially buy that 1/3 partnership, which potentially could make Jay Z and Big's life a living hell as well. All right. Let's see. Should they have decided in the beginning before following the LLC who owns what? Well, they did. They did decide. By the way, again, y'all know I'm a big hip hop head. I believe Combat Jack, Reggie Osei, rest in peace, major inspiration to me, major podcaster, did these contracts, or at least worked with the attorney to do them. And Jay Z and everyone else signed everything over to Roc-A-Fella. So I think that's important. Wouldn't any lawyer be disqualified because all parties are 1/3 on it? It's potential, right? Anything's possible, but it will come down to the judge in that decision. And again, I'm not a lawyer, y'all. I'm not a lawyer. Is it true Jay sold NFT on the 25th anniversary? It's on auction right now. And I am sure Dame is somewhere brewing. But some of that money should also enrich Dame as well, if everything that they're saying is true. That Dame is 1/3, that they all own it together, that the rights of Reasonable Doubt are indeed owned by Roc-A-Fella Records. So you have to be thoughtful of what's going on. I apologize, everybody. the screen locked up, so I had to go out and come right back in. So I was answering the question. All right, so Mad Dog Black 06 asked this question over on IG. He said, you might have addressed this, but outside of being better partners, how could they financially and legally solve this problem? And I started to talk about this, and I said, again, this is a very idealistic point of view. I want to point it out very first and foremost, right? But for Black brothers and sisters who are doing business together, I feel is the key word, right? I feel that you should try to do business in the best interest of all parties involved. You should always be looking to be good stewards of your partners, right? And a good steward of the overall business. Just like a man or a woman who are married and have children, right? It's not just about them. It's about the business. It's not just about them. It's about the kids, right? So how do you do what's best? Yeah, sometimes you might have to go your separate ways. How do you do that in the best interest? So it's hard. It's hard because people be in their feelings and people don't want to budge, and they just want to fight. And they want to fight. And this is important because oftentimes we're locked into our ego, or our ego takes over. And our ego takes over and it says, F that, XYZ did this and they owe me, or I didn't deserve that. Without giving, again, any care, thought, or concern to the children, to the business, to the people who are sacrificing and that are being victimized, keyword here, being victimized by the mistreatment and the unamicable nature of the partners / spouses. All right. So, Mad Dog, I don't know if I answered your question. All you can do is just try to do your best in those situations. All right. So, Toys Vibe is Love is here. She says, where does Biggs land in all this? I feel like we never get his view on anything. Well, I talked about that earlier, right? I talked about Biggs is a very, very crucial part of the Roc-A-Fella journey. Many people overlook him because he's not as famous, but he's been pretty silent, though. And he tends to be pretty silent. He's probably used to Jay and Dan going back and forth. I did see him say something kind of showing his disfavor of Dame's public commentary of Jay. And clearly, again, and this, right, Big is kind of like the kid. He's stuck in the middle of these two big personalities and them doing all these shenanigans. And it's like, what is going on here? From his, I don't know him, right? I am assuming, right? I am putting out what I believe is intellectual guesses on the table to say he probably doesn't like it either, because it becomes a pain. It becomes a pain. It becomes an absolute pain. All right. So Undisputed makes sense. They are 1/3 partners. Yes. So when creating an LLC, can parties be specific about shareholders' percentage for the personal investment? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Biggs has a pop-up closing sale for the 20th. Yes. Thank you, Jimmy. All right. Don't start with the family drama. People fight over the land and money. Right. But this is the same thing. This is the same thing. I wish a lawyer was on. Can you create the LLC and each personal investment is separated in ownership, specified, and when ownership ends, spouse receives nothing? Listen, anything can happen in a contract. Anything can happen in a contract. You just have to put it in writing. You got to agree upon it, and then you got to move from there. All right, so let's get to Miss Edith is asking all the questions. Yes, read about Sotherby's. Okay. Yes. Is it the lawyers against the lawyers? Well, it seems like it's the lawyers against Dame. Jay's lawyers against Dame. It seems like the lawyers Dame has is like maybe a solo practitioner. And Jay Z lawyers, they have like 4 named partners. That doesn't mean anything, but potentially. JT's in the building. All right. Jose says, final bid going to be substantial. 50K would be my highest bid. You know that's going to be more than 50K. Because think about the appreciation, right? As my man and Baby Boy said, you got to buy things that appreciate in value, stocks, bonds, and art. So this is a piece of art I think is going to appreciate in value. It gets notoriety all the time. It gets a lot of streams. It gets a lot of publicity constantly. So I think it'll be more than 50K, Jose. All right. Miss Edith says probably million. Sotherby auction, maybe billion. Who knows? Monica F. Hey, Monica, thank you for the Monica left like some great detailed reviews of the last one. All right. And I shared them out because I got some negative feedback. He was like, why are you talking about Jay Z and Dame? Why not? But this is a Jay Z lover. So I had to talk about it. I try to talk about it as objectively as possible. And like I said, this is a case study, y'all. It's not about taking sides with Dame. It's not about taking sides with Jay or Biggs, right? It's about, these are things that happen in everyday life. I see them all the time, right? So, all right, so the NFT is derivative work. All right, the one that Jay Z is selling. You can make that argument, right? But I think Dame could have a argument for that as well. All right, so Ms. Edith asks, in a partnership, should each partner have an attorney? I'm sure. A lot of times, yes. Each partner should have someone there to represent their interest. Typically, it's not good to have one attorney representing everybody's interest. However, in the very, very beginning stages, most people are broke, so they can't afford 3 separate lawyers. So here's the deal, right? When you get the operating agreement, which we talked about earlier, let's say that they did do it all together with one attorney. After they start making some money, they get more on their feet. They should then get each a separate attorney and renegotiate. You can renegotiate these terms. I don't know if anybody follows Joe Budden and the Joe Budden podcast, formerly known as I'll Name This Podcast Later. That's a big issue with Rory and Mal and Joe. They didn't have separate representation for the most part, and they've talked about that. Again, I'm fascinated with business structure, with business overall. I mean, to me, it's like art. There is no right or wrong, but when you see things like a Joe Budden's podcast, right, which is doing crazy numbers, fall apart all of a sudden, it tells you a lot, and you can learn a lot from it. Okay, Ms. Edith says, I would love to hear JT's response to this lawsuit. Maybe you'll do it. Delphine Diva, what's up, Nikki? How you doing? Thanks for joining us. How would you resolve the Dame J issue? I don't know that there is any real resolve without anyone being injured, financially injured. I think that somebody is probably going to get brought out at a super duper undervalued stake just to walk away, or we've known these folks to be petty, or they'll just stay around and there'll be a nudge on each other's side. There'll be pain in the butt for each other's side. Either way. All right, Delphine and Diva. Listen, everybody go follow Delphine and Diva over there. I interviewed Delphine and Diva. I'm not sure which episode it is, but I interviewed her. She's always finding like these great coupons and apps where you can either, 1, save money, or 2, make money. She told me I should become a voiceover artist and start doing voiceovers for audiobooks. I haven't had a chance to look it up yet, but she be dropping gems, y'all, so check her out. All right. Disclaimer, yes, thank you, Ms. Edith. This forum is for education and entertainment purposes only. This is not investment advice. This is not legal advice. All right, so this is like parents divorcing and parents expecting kids to pick sides. Yes, it is. Very much so. All right, this topic is awesome, but the fans will take sides. Yes, they will. But my job is to be objective. I can't really get into taking of the sides. Praying it remains in the court and not in the streets. They're rich Negroes. This isn't going to the streets. Nikki's still on. Okay, yeah, this isn't going to the streets. It's not going to the streets. And I believe, and I mean, even Jay said it before, right? These folks have made millions and millions and millions of dollars together. There's love there, but y'all know what they say. There's a thin line between love and hate. And so they just at an impasse, right? If you look at my parents, and I can't talk about this too much because they would probably kill me. I think they both still love each other, but they just been hurt by all the stuff, all the baggage in the past, and they haven't found a way to get by it. That's why therapy is important, y'all. That's why therapy is important. All right, so Ms. Edith says, I should do audio book voiceovers. Your voice is awesome. Listen, it's work though. Like, it's not just me reading. Like, there was once a man in a cave who decided to break out of the cave because he recognized he was being manipulated by the puppet master. And when he broke out of the cave, he saw the sun, and he was blinded by the sun, and he couldn't go any further. So he ran back to the cave. He ran back to the comfort of being puppeted, of being manipulated, of being maneuvered, until someone came along to say, son, let's get free. I don't know if I could do all that. Y'all. But listen, I'll try. And by the way, if nobody picked it up, I was talking about the allegory of the cave. It's a great allegory. Check it out. It's definitely on par for today. And I'm actually shocked I was able to recite it off the top of my head like that. But listen, I appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate everybody on IG, all the podcast listeners, all my YouTube family and Facebook family. Every week, like I said, we will do something that impacts wealth in the Black community, so we can do what? Continue to learn, right? So we can increase and elevate our financial IQ. So again, I'm Kamari Ellis. This is the Finance Rebel Show. This is our Wealthy Conversation Saturday. Starts at noon-ish. Every week I try to get here on time, but things happen. But again, I appreciate you all being here. And I'll see y'all next week. Have a great day, everybody. So long.